Thank you for showing up. Wait, till the end. So yeah, I don't know about you, but I had a fantastic AD track having all those guys here showing. Merci, Benjamin. Showing all the stuff, the cool stuff, the advanced stuff. The tool I'm gonna present here, there's no revolution, no 0-day, no. It's just a way to query the BloodHound REST API via PowerShell. However, without being revolutionary, I really enjoy the comfort that it brings when you're starting to play with the data in the database, and hopefully you will find it interesting. So all the stuff you saw, all the new stuff from BloodHound 2.1 has been added to CypherDog, and I will mostly demo today. So yeah, the title of the graph is like Attacker Thinking Graph Management Need Metrics. And this is something I felt on the floor, that no matter how cool the picture is from BloodHound, and you can show a path, but at some point we still need to go back to a list and make statistics about it and make numbers. And working with BloodHound directly in the UI or even in the Neo4j browser is not, for me, didn't fit my workflow. And since I'm a big PowerShell fanboy, I decided to make a PowerShell client for it. So this is me, this is who I am or not. We don't know, we don't care. The agenda for today, a very quick recap on BloodHound, since I did a bit yesterday, but I don't know if everybody was here. And so we'll just put the concept back. Then I'll just tell you quickly the motivation and the kind of goal I had when I was working with the tool. It was also for me a way to learn some advanced PowerShell function building and stuff. And then it's only going to be commandlet demos and all that stuff. So quick BloodHound 101, concept and functionality. So this is going to be like really fast, so don't worry. I stole that one from you, but this one is just perfect. So enjoy it. Where does BloodHound fit? So this is your attack kill chain. BloodHound is not an offensive tool itself. There's no offensive capabilities in there, but it's a fantastic recon tool for offensive purposes. I think there's been a few talks around the topics. You also understood that there's value in the blue field for BloodHound, at least to see what an attacker sees, but also to, as an admin, see your AD in a very different perspective. Credits first, of course. So two of them are here. Harmjoy over there. So I've been following these guys for a while, and I've been starting in AD by copying tools from Dark Operator and these guys. So I'm really happy to have them here. Yeah, unique perspective on AD should be used by defense, and I hope you get that, but also regular admin. I want to see everybody using BloodHound and talking about it. And I want to give a +1 for the community. So if you're not on the BloodHound Slack, it doesn't only talk BloodHound, but anything red team, pen testing, defense. There's really a great community out there ready to help, ready to share. And like I said, you pop a question and these guys show up and answer for you. They will welcome you if you come. So for real, they reply to everybody joining, hey, welcome. So that's quite cool. Just a little side note, attackers think in autograph. So if you pay a beer to Captain Jesus, he will sign you an autograph. That's being said. Quick terminology. So when we talk about BloodHound, you're going to hear me talk about node, edges, and path. And these are also the alias I took from my commandlets. So we're going to talk about this a lot. So a node is simply an object on the graph. An edge is the relationship between those two objects, and a path is nodes connected by relationship. Yeah. Different type of nodes. So originally when BloodHound came out, you only had users, computers, and group. And because Rohan never sleeps, at some point he added GPO and OUs. And then relationships, so edges, started with the default. So you had the member of, admin2, and has session. Two top ones are now in the most expensive Microsoft defensive tool, but they don't have all the 18 others. So BloodHound still has a lot of value. Trusted by, I put a bit in gray because it's just between the domains. So it's not really a relationship you query in a path, but it's also here if you want to map the trust in your environment. Then came the ACLs, and the ACL add a lot of complexity to the graph because each time you add an edge, you multiply the amount. So it's not adding, but it's actually exploding the graph. And GPO use came with 2. Special, so can RDP execute decom, the famous delegation. I think we've been talking about that a lot. and the latest addition, so the add allowed to act and allowed to act are also in the module if you want to play with this. This is what it looks like. I think we've seen a few screenshots, and that's about it for BloodHound 101. So I hope that covers just the base for the vocabulary, and here we go with CypherDog. So I'm a big PowerShell fanboy, so I did it in PowerShell. You could do that in anything, but the idea that if you work with BloodHound, after a while you're clicking around, and you get this RSI and the doctor stops you. So anything PowerShell is good for me, automate all the things. What I tried to put in there mostly is dynamic parameters. So I had the pleasure to spend a few days in class with a dark operator, and this reassured me so much that he's also dyslexic, a very bad typist, and I'm exactly like this. I have very two bad hands, I can't type, so typing the full names for an account was awful for me. So you have tab completion everywhere, on everything, and I'll demo that in a moment. And then, of course, pipeline combos. So this is a big feature of PowerShell. If you know how to handle the pipeline, you can just chain all your commands and start to build very complex questions in very simple syntax. Sorry. The benefit of this, well, to simply manipulate the data. So I'm going to show you commands to insert node, to modify the properties of all the objects, to do things at scale. So you can, I don't know, add nodes to all your DCs in one go instead of having to click on all the nodes and go type your text inside. Automate anything. At some point last year, I made a talk about inserting your Empire infrastructure in BloodHound. I don't know if it's the best idea, but I found this fun. And now that Metasploit 5 has a REST API, I think I'm also going to put I need to build a module first, but put it in BloodHound as well. So then as an attacker, you see your attack graph and the infrastructure you're in, and you can like automate from you to, and the automation will choose the server and the agent, and because it's on the path. So you can automate things very easily without specifying anything. No need to mask the cipher, so you're going to see it's almost English syntax, but I added a cipher switch. So each time you ask something, you can also see the equivalent query that is sent to the server, and it's for me a great way to learn cipher. Maybe I went a bit overboard, but this is the full list of commands that are available in the module, because Jeffrey Snover told me I was a bad boy because I didn't use the pure PowerShell syntax, so I changed them all to real PowerShell syntax, and I added BloodHound in front just to be sure that you never type the full syntax because it's too long, and you just use the alias that are at the end, and that make your life way easier. But if you want the very verbose, you can. So as of now, only demo. So first part, playing go fetch, simply getting data from the database and seeing what you can do with it. Very simple commandlets: get BloodHound node, search BloodHound node, get BloodHound edge, get BloodHound edge R reverse, so you know an edge is directed, so we can query them both ways, find the target or find the source, depending on the edge. And then path, that would be your shortest path, and path any would be all path. So that's more of a dangerous question to ask because you can get way too many data back. And here we go for demo. So, first one I want to demo, if you type BloodHound, you will get all the commands, and then you find under RTFM the help page that goes with it. My help page are still minimal, because like I keep wanting to do the documentation, but Captain Jesus keeps updating, adding new stuff, so instead of doing the documentation, I add new stuff in it. So the documentation will wait a bit, but it's going to come. And it's not pure BloodHound, so if you type CypherDog, you get the same thing. So this is how it looks. I'm going to do it once, but I told you I was a really bad typist, so I won't do it too much. But everything tab complete, so I could say node user, and then, I don't know, is there a D? And you would get the node of the user with 3 letters, so that's quite cool. All the rest, I'll just F8 my commands, but you could be typing them with tab completion. Full syntax, get BloodHound node type computer. That will return all the computers, but you can also specify name. And the name's tab complete. You could specify several. If I get all the computers, and because you're in PowerShell, you can do cool stuff with the normal PowerShell commands after. So outgrid view is a normal PowerShell command, but if you want to filter all your data in a convenient way, you could do something like this and start filtering on properties. And so anything that's in PowerShell is yours to use with CypherDog as well. So I find this grid view is one of my favorites, so I often put it in there. Can ask for one computer, and then like I told you, if you ask for -cypher on any command, we'll show you the cipher and put it in your clipboard. So if I go now back to BloodHound and I just paste it here, the equivalent of asking for a node in BloodHound is not that interesting, but if I click on BloodHound, then you get the properties here. This is exactly what you would see in the object that was returned from this query here. So everything is here. Of course, you can query multiple objects at the same time, get a nice table, maybe eventually start to compare if you had comparisons to do, which is not revolutionary again, but way harder to do in the UI because you have to click one, look at the properties, remember them, click the other one, look at the properties and compare. So here you get a nice table. And all the commandlets have implemented pipelines, so you can push the names over the pipeline and you would get the same result. What you can do, if you're not very comfortable with Cypher, is get all the users and do the filtering the PowerShell way with a where. So here I'm asking for all the computers where sensitive is set to true. And I could format table for the audience. And you get all your computers with format table set to true. You can do more complex stuff. So node computer where operating system match 10, where unconstrained delegation is false, select name and object SID. And you get exactly what you ask for. Search BloodHound node this time is a bit more complex. It does the Cypher query to really ask on the server side this time for what you're looking for. This is way more efficient, of course, and I would recommend first filtering on the server side to get the maximum of filtering that way, and then filter the rest on your PowerShell side. But here, for example, so I'm asking for the groups that have admin in their name, and I want the name and the description of the group in a nice table. Whoops. Let's do the long one first. And the bottom syntax is exactly equivalent, but for the lazy people or if you're in a hurry. Okay, now you can search by property. So here, computers that have the delegation set to true, all this, shorter syntax. You can check if a property exists. That, for now, probably doesn't make sense because we didn't add custom properties, but when you start adding your own, you might want to check which nodes have it, which nodes don't. So there's no property with this. And you can do the opposite, so negate the query. And that's what it looks like, it brings back. And if I do Cypher, you see the query and you see that I'm using this Neo4j syntax where not exist the property of the node return XML. So again, a very cool way to learn your basic Cypher if you're struggling with it like I was a few months ago before Waldo put me back on tracks. Now about edges. So the way an edge works, you have the source, you have the target, and the edge in the middle. And I tried to make a syntax that you could query both by naming the edge and say if you want to look at the target or the source. It's a bit dodgy, but it was edge and edge reverse. And then I came up with alias to try and make a bit more English. But all this is the same equivalent, so let's have a look. The long way. So see what group the user Gary is a member of. And you get your groups. And you know that in BloodHound, groups can be nested. So here you get only the direct memberships, but you could say any degree, and star would be whatever. So, but you can say 1, 2, 3, depending on the degree. Here I will get all the groups with the shortest syntax. They do it like this. So you see he's the direct member of 2 groups, but if I put the star, you get this, and he's actually a member of 7 groups. And if you want the cipher, you can simply do this. I think you got that by now. Where to makes it sound more English, even though dodgy English, but where to user Gary Catania, member of group. It's easier than the Cypher query that goes with it. So if you can remember this, you should be able to find your way. And then again, I'm going to do some filtering on the side once I receive the data. So where domain match sub, for example, and you would return all the groups where the domain match sub.domain.local. This one is one of my favorite because like this syntax is, for me, is like pure English. There's no, and it all tab complete, so you can really, and you can do it with all the edges, but I just showed the demo with the member. So let's start with the, I won't do the long ones, I'll just do the what. What user member of group with Windows authentication, you get them immediately. What computer has a session for Gary, you get the computers. What group can write a generic write on what group, on this group, and you get the answer immediately. So yeah, I don't know. For me, it makes a big difference being able to do this, completely abstracting Cypher and returning objects. And I hope you will find some ideas on what you can do with all this. Now, when you start asking for path, I had to transform path into object, so that's something to get used to, but that's what a path would look like in an object way, and each line is an object, and you could start automating your attacks, for example, based on these objects. And you see here I have an allowed to act. Probably I added this one just to make an example. My database is probably the worst AD ever because I changed so many stuff in there, it doesn't make sense, but it's enough for practice and for demo. The same function than the filtering that you see here, where you can filter by edges, I added it to the demo, so you can also simply say no ACL, no GPO, and here, let me do it like so with the GPO. So you see I have a path of 4 steps. But if I say with no, and there's, of course, yeah, there's an ACL in there, generic all, but I could do no ACL, no GPO, for example, and you see I get a different path with different edges, so that restricts, it's the same filter functionality, basically. And I made the groups, you can include, exclude. I won't go into too much details, but if you play with the commandlets, there's a lot of switches you can use to get exactly what you want. And if you go back with Cypher at the end, you can document your moves by showing the path, which is the equivalent basically of, whoops, let me do this. No, doesn't change much. So this, what you see here, is exactly the equivalent in object of the one you see right there, right? So in BloodHound, you can ask for shortest path, all shortest path. So the command with only path is actually shortest path. And you can say all to make it become all shortest path. So you will get way more path here. Let me put a format table. I lost my demo, so I had to rewrite everything before the talk. C'est pas bien. So what you see here, and you can again go back into your Cypher in your BloodHound and get the same graph here. That was the only one. Slightly longer. That's quite a nice one. Oops, did I just close BloodHound? Yeah. Sometimes I don't want to automate all the things, right? Even your logging to BloodHound, because it's sometimes a bit painful. Okay. And then when you don't specify shortest path or all shortest path, so that's where the query can get a bit more dangerous. You will ask for all the path, and this is the one I call path any to make a clear difference. Again, here I use those queries again on a one-to-one, but on a one-to-many, many-to-one, on a big database, a big data set, you might start making the dog a bit tired. So be careful what you do with this. Oh yeah, and I put a safety, like if you don't specify any hops, he puts a hop of, yeah, there's a few paths in there. So they're all indexed. Yeah, I'll stop that, that's okay. But you see that returns a lot of data, and if I do the same thing, I'm not sure the graph can handle it actually. Because that's, returning the object is easy, where BloodHound sometimes gets tired is graphing the whole stuff. So you might not be able to graph everything you can get as an object, but we got that. And then good luck. So here, yeah, of course, because I'm asking with any type of edge, so you see the very long string with all the edges, but you got your cipher. So if you wanted to cut it down, just erase a few edges in the query that you have now, and you're ready to start playing in BloodHound, but the cipher is already built for you. So that's, again, a big advantage for me. I don't know, again, if this makes sense in a relay D. Not really worried about that. And that was it for the easy thing, so just getting data from the database. Let me go back to my slide. Use case for this, anybody. Right? If you have BloodHound, you might want to do something with the data. Those commandlets are just a way to read data and see what's in there. More interestingly, you can start to customize stuff. I don't know, maybe in your environment you have schema extension or attributes on the object that you would want to collect as well, but are not collected by BloodHound. Run a bit of PowerShell, collect your info, and pushing it into BloodHound is easy as pie. I don't know why. Easy as pie with the BloodHound. So these are the CypherDog. These are the commandlets. So new BloodHound node, set BloodHound node, remove BloodHound node, new BloodHound edge, remove BloodHound edge. There's not a new BloodHound path because you create a path by creating edges between nodes and not by creating a path, of course. And again, demo use case here. I need to put use cases. As a red teamer, maybe in an engagement, you find new boxes, new sessions. You want to update the data along your engagement. As a blue team, maybe you want to map something in your infrastructure. I don't know, jump servers that are not joined to the domain, or anything you might think of that you want to add in your graph. You can do it. You can even imagine new type of nodes if you want, or like I did with my Empire nodes, for example. Via the API, you can do it. In the graph, it's more complicated. So let's have a look at this. I'm doing Bob and Alice, but you could do better. So I'm just creating a node named Bob. Same syntax, and I create a node named Alice, and I can have a look at those two nodes. They've been created. So the thing is here, when you create them, I'm just creating it with a name. And that's not really convenient. The way PowerShell works, he's going to choke a bit on this because he can't align nicely all your objects because you're missing properties. So I added a kind, and because I know Captain Jesus adds a lot of stuff. So you can do Alice and Bob. I'm going to do clone, and what that does simply, it looks at the properties on an existing user node, and it gives you all the properties with a TBD, so you can then fill the fields, but you don't need to remember the properties. So you can add what you want. I'm ready. Good. Yeah. He came up and said, hey, we got new edges. Okay, cool, give them to me. And then I think in the reply, I showed him a screenshot that was updated. So now all I need to do if he comes up with new node types is add them in the enum on top of my code and new edges. So updating the code to 2.1 was as complicated as adding this in the code. Bring it on. Again. Good. Waiting. Back to them. So I created Bob and Alice, and I cloned the properties. So now if you look at them both, they both have those TBD. Then you can start to update the values. So no data in BloodHound is, I use the merge behind the merge Neo4j command, so it's non-destructive. You're going to overwrite, but you're never going to delete anything, which is quite convenient for this type of funky moves. So here I'm updating a property of admin count. I'm setting it to true, and at the same time, I'm adding my own property that I would want to add on the object. And now if you look at those, they have the extra property, my value in there, and admin count set to true. So you can very quickly modify the data, add new properties, and new nodes to your graph. Now creating an edge between two nodes is also very easy. So the syntax edge create, user owns user, Alice local to Bob demo will create the, so edges are directional, and this is something to remember when you create them. And then you can simply again ask, okay, now that I created this edge, what user owns Bob and Alice owns Bob. Deleting nodes, I added the little PowerShell safety switches. So before you do anything, you can check. And if I say no delete user Bob and Alice, what if? He's going to say this is what I would do. So when you deal with a large data set, this is a kind of cool safety, just to be sure. Or when you're piping stuff and you want to know at the end what's going to be the result, the what if is good. If I do this, he asks for safety. I put it in, but we like to do stuff the unsafe way. So I added the force, and then they're gone. This is the ugliest message ever from PowerShell, but when you got a validate set, which with, like, when you start CypherDog or when you update, he caches locally the name of all the nodes. So he asks for all the names and cache them locally. So now I have a validate set with all the name, and when the name is not in the validate set, he spits this error. So if you had like 3,000 or more names, he spits a long error. You can put a try catch in your scripts just to get rid of the error, but it's here. That's the most annoying. I would say make an error where say cannot validate the argument in validate set. You don't need to tell me the whole, but that's more of a PowerShell feature. So try catch, and you don't get the error. If you were scripting, I would put the try catch in there. And that's basically the 4 commandlets to add nodes. Very useful, but again, find your use case, depending on if you're blue, an admin, red. That would really depend. Now, the interesting stuff. Let me go back, just to show you some slides with the title. So, learning new tricks, blacklisting nodes, doing the path cost, the cheapest path, the Waldo index, and more cool stuff. I'll explain all this. But the commands that you're going to use, so owned and high values have been added. I forgot to ask, how many of you are regular BloodHound users? That makes sense so far. I should have asked that before, actually. Yes, well, thanks. It makes sense. Good. These are the commandlets you would use. And let me show you all this again in a demo. The notes. So that's a cool feature in the, I don't know if you saw that, but in the UI, if I take a node, let's say him, up in the bottom there, you can add your personal notes on, and that could be useful in an engagement or anything. You want to keep track of what you're doing, you can do that in the UI. And there's also a picture feature, but this I didn't find any way to kind of do it via the command line. I'm not sure where it's stored and stuff. No, you say no? Okay. I didn't find it, so I was like, well, okay, cool. Then I know why I couldn't. Let's have a look. So if I look at the notes for Gary, he has no notes for now. I'm going to add a hello world to Gary. Then I can look at the notes for Gary and I see my hello world. I added a stamp. I think if you're on an engagement and you want to keep track, it's also good to know who did what. And like if you're sharing the BloodHound server, maybe more people input stuff in there. And so if I do stamp, it will simply, let me see. Oops. Let's do this one now. It adds the date, time you did it, and the username that was running on the computer who did it. It's just like an extra feature to be able to eventually track stuff in time. I did that. You can overwrite if you want. So now if I look, the rest is gone, but I only have my last message. You can clear them, and now there's nothing anymore. That was for the notes, yeah. You can do it at scale. I like doing stuff at scale because that's what PowerShell is made for. So all the computer nodes that have DC in their name, I want to put this is cool in the comments, and then I can have a look, and it's already done. If you go back on the UI, let's say, well, let me find the DC. You're right there. Shung. And you see my this is cool note, isn't it? Twice. Still is a beta, so it's a beta on the BloodHound Slack. And somebody, if you test it and you catch this, tell me and I will fix it. Blah, 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 where am I? Up. You can clear them all in one go, same thing, and then you don't have any more. Did I? So, okay, I'll have to check the notes. It was the last one. Edge info is an awesome one. If you're like me and you're a permanent noob, so I keep learning every day new stuff influenced by those brains. I'm just the guy who tries to follow and struggles. Man, that Benjamin Delpy talk, I don't know about you, but I was shocked. I'm still digesting it, so merci. So here it gives you exactly the same text than you would find by right-clicking an edge like Waldo showed you yesterday, but let's do it again. Let's take whatever path, right-click an edge, and if you get the help, you can find all the good stuff under the, well, member of is not the best. Even though that's the bug I think I found, like The references for the member of are about delegation? So maybe here you just pasted the wrong stuff. And because like any admin is lazy and wants, well, not lazy, is efficient-minded, so he wants to get he wants to get to the result quickly. If you say edge info allowed to act online, pranks, and you can immediately get all the good blog posts from wedging the dog to Rubeus to, so everything that is listed in there, you can very quickly pop it out, start reading, get your game up, and apply the attack if you like, if you find it. Next one, you remember that graph Waldo showed you yesterday with all the admins for each computer and that nice little curve you can get? Well, it's called edge count, but I like to call it top node because we're counting the edge, but per node. That makes sense when I say this. So if you say top node member, he gives you all the who has the most membership in the domain. And if I limit it to 5 because I want to do the top 5, but if you want the whole database to do it, same thing. You can just have your count here, sort it per count, and you would get that same nice little graph Waldo was getting. You can limit it to a domain if you want. That might make sense in your reports or in the way you want to graph stuff. And you can, of course, get the Cypher for it and go back to the UI and document your report with some nice... with some nice. And sometimes it really produces almost art. I like it. There's a gallery, by the way, on the BloodHound Slack for the nicest stuff. Some of them are funky. I don't know, I'm not going to go into details. Do you guys see the same thing very often?
No comment.
I know what you're thinking of. So top node membership. So yeah, I had to find a way to distinguish the direction of the edge. So member and membership, you'll get used to. I hope it makes sense. In my brain, it did. So these are the guys with the most membership. These are the guys with who admin the most computers. And you can, of course, limit to null every time to get the whole scope of your whole infrastructure. These are the computers with the most admins. These are the nodes with the most logons. These are the computers with the most sessions running on them, and so on and so on. So you can really like whatever. I was planning to make a dashboard, and he came out yesterday with his Power BI dashboard. So I'm a bit like, ah, shit, it's done. Oh, zut, c'est fait. So I'll probably make mine in pure PowerShell with a universal dashboard, just to make something different. Next command I want to show you is the list. So this one I dedicate to John Lambert and his attackers think in graph, defenders think in list. I think we're all defenders, so we need the list. So I gave you a list commandlet, and we can do list admin by Gary, and you will get all the computers that are admin by Gary. Admin 2, so you know the direct admin, derivative admin, delegated, and so on. So you they're in there, so you can do it. So if I want only the name of the direct admins in this group, and then delegated, you get a few more. And that's the scary bit every time when you show this at the customers. Who are your real admins? So there's way more than what you thought. And I think this is something in many talks, we saw that you understand the nesting of the groups, and you can do this and show them visually what it looks like again. It's a mess. My AD is a mess. But this is like the map of the subway. So I just like the map of the subway is not only for an attacker, it's for everybody also. So this is good to see. And you can list way more. So here I'm seeing, but you can list the logon of a specific users, for example, and you can return only the properties you would want of the object. I think you understood this by now. It's an object, so you can do your PowerShell moves once you got it with you. I put more in there, but they all make so yeah, list the member of a group, and then you can list the membership of a user. So it goes in both directions. Yesterday, Waldo also mentioned the cross-domain path, so where you go from one domain to another. I have a commandlet called get BloodHound cross-domain or cross-domain. Cross-domain member format table, where do they come from, where do they go to, and then you can start saying from domain if you wanted to filter that. Cross-domain sessions, out grid view. I think you understood by now that it's just objects, so you can do what you want with it. Hoops. Owned and high value have been added. So in the UI, you could simply go on a node and mark it as owned or high value if you wanted to. Just as a shortcut, you could retrieve this by using node search property high value equal true. Again, in search of efficiency, I created the owned command. So you can just say own computer and you will get your computers marked as owned. You can say high value and you will get, it's useful for queries inside to keep them clear afterwards. I can say high value and type my stuff to it. There's an example a bit below. Cheapest path, that's the one I really like. So when I started working with BloodHound and understanding how this whole stuff works, one thing that blocked me is, okay, we get all those nested group and maybe actually the path that I'm looking at and that is shorter has actually a higher cost in terms of attack than a longer path that will have this whole chain of nested groups. So the idea here in path cheap is to, I'll show you the cipher, then you will understand. But here I'm asking for the cheapest path. And if we look at the cipher, whoosh, that's the bit in cipher where that's where I needed Waldo's to put me back on track. Yeah, the syntax is funny, but then you start to, so here we're extracting the relationship, looking at the type, and when it's not member of, we don't count it. So at the end, you get a count of all the edges on the path that are not member of, and this is why I call the cost of the attack, meaning all the rest is 1. And that's arbitrary. I'm saying you might think, okay, some attacks are louder than others, and I would want to go even further and weight 2 on specific type of attacks. You could do that. But the easiest way I found for now without using, what's the name? He's Dutch. I can't say his name. Dijkstra's algorithm. Yeah. Yeah. So without using this, you can already like count 0 on the member of with this technique. To go further and weight every edge with a specific weight, you would have to use a procedure. I looked into it, but it was way over my head. I think Dirkian looked into it, if I remember, also in Python, but you did. And
it's also custom stuff if you want to do it in Slack.
You managed? Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll have to catch you on Slack, man. And the same thing, so the path cheaps, you can also specify the same type of filter, no ACL, no GPO, no special, whatever you want. And if you say no ACL, but one of the ACL still needs to be in there, you can add it separately afterward. And I'm not joking, everything tab completes every time, so this is very comfortable for me. You could get that's not an ACL, but let's say, I don't want the ACLs, but I still want generic rights. You could just say no ACL, but include generic right. And you can also exclude. So at the end, you can really fine tune to get only what you want. Might be quicker to type your cipher after a while, which is what I end up doing now. But at least by writing all this, I learned cipher. So it's a win-win. And that's the cipher. We showed it already. Path cost. So here is a commandlet to directly ask for the cheapest path, but you could also ask for a path and then do some kind of funky stuff to get the cost of those paths. Let me just show you what it looks like. Here I'm asking for a path from the user Gary to any of the groups that are my high value groups and formatted in a table. And what it returns, the problem I had with this is because I'm using the pipeline, so he gives me an ID of 0 for all of my paths. So I can't really read nicely, but you see here it goes from a 0 to a 4 and then 0 again, but they're all marked 0. So I have a commandlet fix ID. I'll find something better, but you can do this, and then he puts the ID back. And once you get that, you can do a path cost, and he groups them by path. And you see actually that the 10th path he was giving me is actually cheaper than the first one. So that's what makes sense for me. And then I could select the first one and expand the path to get back to the, so path number 10 was actually very cheap. It cost nothing. You're already in that group by nested memberships in the group. Yeah. And now we move on to the cool stuff. So pipeline combos. In PowerShell, you can, every object passed over the pipeline is treated as 1. But the output is grouped as one list of object of that type. So here, I'm asking for all the user member of the group schema admin, just show me the name. Name is not a real commandlet, it's a shortcut I have for me because I was asking names all the time, so it would be a select object property name. I just made a commandlet to do that because I can pipe to name, so it's quicker for me. Shung, you get the names. Now I get these users. I can directly ask afterwards, throw them back at the database and ask where are they logged on. Shung. And now, so the users in this group give me all the computers they're logged on to, and then you can filter, so where they're in the subdomain and the OS is Windows 10. Let's do a format table. So these are the computers, and you can continue like as much as you want. I made some long ones just for fun, but let's read it first so it makes sense in English. What user member of group schema admin, list logon domain sub, operating system match 10, list admin 2, select name, last logon. It just works, so it's quite cool. Let's do it. Punk, you got all of them, and you can eventually sort them by last logon and export them to a CSV and do some reporting with it. And now that this is done, you can open the CSV and you will see that, oops. Ooh. You get the list. So management wants a CSV. You don't need to come up with, you can make it a one line. I love making one lines. Huh? There's a job to do. I try to make it a one-liner, like done. Or you could do way more than this. Once it's in Excel, you can start making a nice graph and all that shit, all that stuff. Sorry. My mother will watch this, so I'm trying to keep my language down. Now, all this whole module, all the commandlets you saw, all they do is string manipulation to come to Cypher, and then shoot it to the REST API with the dog post query. So if you're like Waldo and you think in Cypher, you can use PowerShell just as your little notepad to test queries and stuff. And just put your whatever you want, but just put dog post on top, open the guillemets, apostrophe, no, quotes, yes, open quotes, put a closing quote in the bottom and just use ISE as your notepad for Cypher. And if you run this, oops, shunk, maybe it won't come up with anything. There was nothing, but you can write your own queries in there and just dog post it to the server. If you're doing path, then you might have to expand. Well, if you're using the dog post purely, get me on Slack and I'll explain the switches to expand the object the way you want. It's not too complicated. You do expand data or expand data, comma data, depending if it's a path or a node. I'm getting too much in details here. And yeah, now finally we're getting to metrics. So the idea with the pass cost and the hubs and was to be able to find a way to communicate something meaningful to management. When we're looking at the graph or how do you quantify this? And the one I came up with, or while discussing with Waldo, was okay, how many users can access this group? And from that group, how far or how many computers can they access? So you get a nice butterfly of users into a group, and from that group, I can reach so many computers. And then he makes a bit of a calculation over it. Let me see. So node group domain admin, Waldo.io. So it's the Waldo index, I called it, in honor of Waldo. And that's what it looks like on a single node. So it just pops out the results. So you see here in any domain, I could specify just a single domain to have this statistic calculated just on the domain, or you can just let it run with the whole forest. And then here I have 64 users going into domain admin, 35 have a pass, that's 54% of your users. The average number of hop is, or the number of hop is 5.2. They touch one computer on the way, and I think the touch is important for blue team, DFIR, knowing that's on the computer is where you leave anything, so that's where they would have to go look. And then calculating the cost, so you would know there's 5 hops, but actually only 2.8, so probably some nested memberships in there. And then, so we got into the domain admin, and then going out, you have 33 computers in your infrastructure, and you can reach 33 of them. So here, 54% of your users can reach the whole computer infrastructure. So I think this is a very maybe simplistic way, but it speaks to anybody, even non-technical, even completely just if you tell them, look, 90% of your users can access the whole infrastructure, nobody would like it, right? I hope management would think, yeah, that's not normal. And of course, because it's PowerShell, you can do it at scale. So all my high-value groups, Waldo.io, format table, and using the pipeline, he's going to start doing the math for you. And that's all here. And you can do your nice out-grid view if you want later. Then he does it also with the pipeline. I like this. But then you can here maybe start to filter easily or what you want, or sort them by, I don't know, by touch. Oof. Anyway, doesn't matter, but if you can sort your data without grid view, I really like it. And then because once you have all of this, it's hard to read, it doesn't make sense anymore. Last week I added the Waldo average. It's just a way of calculating on the whole list of what you gave it an average, again. So I know averages are bad because we're not, but it's just a way to represent something quickly. And here again, you would get the average for all the high value groups with multiple groups. And then, yeah, I want to create the out BloodHound dashboard, but that's already done, basically. It's less exciting now that you did. I want to look at yours, but it's less exciting. And yeah, like I said, custom queries, all this. Blacklisting nodes. So that was an experiment for me. Did that run? Maybe? No. Let me close this. Let me do it again. So here I wrote a little blog post about how you can do in Cypher to blacklist a node and then query path excluding the blacklist. So same thing, there are commandlets in there that you can set blacklist user and the name of the user. Then he's marked as blacklist with an extra label, not an extra property. And then you have commandlets in your path. You can say blacklist and it will calculate the path excluding the path that contains a node that is blacklisted. So I don't know if it's very useful. For me, it was just like when Waldo told me, okay, I'm removing edges from the database. So I started doing that, and the workflow was so painful for me, like having to like know which one was the last. I am partially ADD or something. It was too much for me. Like all those old databases, I didn't know which one to go back to when I made a mistake and stuff. So dealing with a blacklist, an unblacklisting node was easier. If you're interested in this, you can read this blog post and find out. If you want to know more about Cypher, right here on the Incinerator blog, you have a link to a little, let's say, PDF I wrote that will give you all the base about Cypher. There's some cool stuff in there. But yeah, basically that's for a workshop we gave a couple months ago. And it's all public material available. I still need to update for the new edges, so the Dog Whisperer handbook is not fully updated yet. And that's about it. The code will be on GitHub tomorrow, because I have a dinner tonight, and I would like to get slightly escalated. And reasonably, but yeah, we've been here for a week. We've been preparing everything. We've been working hard. I hope you really enjoyed the AD track. And all the rest, of course. But for us also is the moment to let go a bit. So I'm not going to go home tonight and update the last stuff and put it on GitHub, but it will be there shortly. If you're really interested, the beta is already available on the BloodHound Slack via the CypherDog channel, and you can always get your hands on it and hopefully find some cool stuff to add. I'm not the type of guy to do like PRs on GitHub and stuff. It's more I put my code up there, and if I have time, I'll update it. So don't like, oh, the guy is not, I made a PR and he's not replying, or do it, you know? I mean, fork away, do your stuff, share. I don't own this. This is like just PowerShell sending Cypher queries to the database. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, code on GitHub, questions on Slack, and that was it. And questions now if you have, of course.